Right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to tonight's lecture. Our topic tonight is Indigenous languages, 7 major language groups, and their place in history, taught by the Honored Noble Walks Upon Scorched Earth. So tonight's lecture is part of our Huapahua Period America Lecture series, which is a monthly series that promotes the study of North, South, and Central America in cultures within the SCA period. So we've been lucky enough to host these lectures over the last 9 months, and we've created a really fantastic library of information on our YouTube channel with topics from agriculture to weaving to scribal arts. Definitely recommend you check those out if you haven't seen them already, and I'll put the link in the chat after I finish talking. But just a few housekeeping notes before we get started. So firstly, this lecture is recorded, so we ask that you either raise your hand and wait for the instructor to call on you, or leave comments and questions in the chat so that we can keep the recording nice and clean for those who aren't able to join us tonight. Secondly, in joining all of our lectures, you are agreeing to our zero tolerance policy for racism, xenophobia, colorism, and other forms of discrimination. If you have concerns about any attendee or any of the lecturers, I hope you feel safe in reaching out to me. I'll also put my email address in the chat. And thirdly, we are always looking for additional instructors for months coming up. We're still looking for some early 2026 instructors. So if you have a topic that you'd like to teach, please reach out to me again. I'm going to put that email address in the chat. And I am very happy to announce that we do have a December lecture. It will be on the topic of poultry in the Americas, and the time and additional class info will be announced in all the regular places as we get closer to December. So again, I'm really excited to have this course today. So I will let our instructor take over now.
Thank you for having me. I just a little bit of background. I've been in the SCA for about 25 years. I joined when I was 18 in the Kingdom of Onstiora. At that time, I had an interest in honoring my background. My grandfather was full-blooded Cherokee, or as we call ourselves, Salagi, and my grandmother was Ojibwe and some Scandinavian. We're not sure what kind, as we don't know who her father was. And I finally got to the point in my SEA career where I was like, this is something that I can't stop answering. I'm hearing this call and I need to pay attention. I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen now, and we'll go through that. If you do have any questions, like I said, either um, sorry, I was reading the comments. I apologize there. Just pop them in the chat and I will answer them throughout, or we can wait until the end and I will answer any questions people have then. I do appreciate you coming to this class. And let's get started.
You have been muted. There we go.
Yeah, sometimes I accidentally hit a button and it mutes me, so I apologize about that. As we can see here, we're going to be talking about Indigenous language, how it is all connected, and their place in history. Um, some of the largest groups in Canada and the US circa 1500s, and this goes down into Mexico. We're looking at the Siouan, the Algonquian, the Iroquois, the Muskegon, the Uto-Aztecan, including Nahuatl, Tupi-Guarani, Cilician, and Mayan. And some other languages I would like to touch upon are going to be the Yupik and the Keresan. The Yupik is going to be what we would consider the indigenous languages of Alaska, and the Inuit or Inuit people who migrated. Some of them did migrate down into Canada. What I've included here is the written syllabi of the Cherokee language. It is post-period for us, but I do find it very fascinating in the sense that it is more sounds versus letters. I've compared it in the past, similar to how if you make kanji or Cantonese or some other languages, even some Middle Eastern languages, if you put them together, they're not really letters, more that they are sounds, so that you can create a word to communicate. Some of the reasons I feel that Indigenous languages are incredibly important. Language as a whole, regardless of your cultural background, is what is connects us as people. It allows us, gives us a shared history, allows us to communicate, to create societies, to build bridges. There is some, for us, it is Indigenous people. There's a cultural continuity. They are the main way cultures pass down histories, traditions, songs, and spiritual beliefs. It's part of our identity and well-being. It fosters a strong sense of pride, self-esteem, and belonging within Indigenous communities. It connects people deeply to their ancestors and their way of life. There are rich knowledge systems that exist within Indigenous language, specific, knowledge about local environment, medicinal practices, and unique worldviews that are not found elsewhere. Connection to place, they reflect a community's deep relationship with their land and often tied to specific place names that hold historical meaning. Language is a critical expression of sovereignty and underpins a community's ability to govern itself. Community strength. Language revitalization efforts build social unity and improve community health and engagement. Within my generation, I'm in my 40s. My generation and younger generations are capturing these stories from our elders so that we can pass them on to future generations and share that with the world as a whole. Maybe not some of our closed practices, but some of our other cultural things that we can share with the wider community. And then here's just a little bit of continuation of why I feel that they're important and some of the reasons from my research that I've unfortunately, it would be addressing some historical injustices, diversity of thought, and adaptability. One of the things it helps us move towards healing from policies that maybe not would have directly affected us and stripped us of our identities as Indigenous people. It's a way to reclaim that. Diversity of thought, it just offers different ways to look at the world as well. And then adaptability, they're not static. They are, much like any other language, are always adapting and changing to keep up with the times and just the improvements that we see throughout the world. This right here is a map. So this was a map. This was as of the 16th century, all the nations that they thought existed within the United States and Canada. And then they cut off the part with Mexico, so I do apologize about that because it does have a whole much lower part. You can see the upper part of Mexico, but it cut off the lower part in this image that existed. And so with that being, some of these were absorbed just from infighting. They were taken over by other cultures and absorbed, which then led to different languages adapting and changing from the other influences from these other cultures that were absorbed through warfare, intermarrying and the such. Some of them would have been because of European contact as well, and some diseases that were brought over that we did not have immunities for that led to pandemics within the North American continent. So this right here is the statistics as of 2023. This is actually something I just updated today because I was doing a little bit more research before I did this class tonight. So these are going to be the largest speakers of Indigenous languages as of 2023. There are groups out there that are doing historical and they're doing statistics on to figure out how many native speakers we have. The last one that I saw, at least for the Cherokee people, which I'm a registered member of, I'm in the Katoa band specifically, it was about 23,000. So as you can see, we're down to about 11,000. Growing up as a kid, I spent a lot of time with my grandparents, and that was the language they spoke in their house. We spoke English in public, but we spoke Cherokee predominantly within the home. And then my other culture, the Ojibwe that I am associated with, we have about 9,700 speakers of that language. They do currently have programs where they are recording the elder songs and stories. And there is a STEM group of young people that are currently making a robot where you can have interactive conversations with them to help you learn it, help you learn the Ojibwe language. You will say something to them and then they will respond to you. So it becomes the way of learning languages is more conversational versus stilted. So some examples of linguistic evolution and migratory patterns that I found in my research. So the Cherokee language was originally Central Southern Iroquois based language, and that is specific. That's important because specifically there would be dialect differences between Northern Iroquois and Southern Iroquois and Southwest Iroquois versus South Central Iroquois, etc. Um, Southeastern region, we're talking Florida, Georgia, Tennessee, was predominantly Muskogee or Muskegon. And Muskogee is actually what the Seminole language is based off of. So we were kind of an outlier when we came in there with our Iroquois-based language. But there was a shift and a break in the Iroquois Confederation, which is what caused us to migrate to what now people think of as our ancestral home for the eastern band of the Cherokee. And then with the Ojibwe, it's an Algonquian-based language that migrated into what is now Minnesota, displacing the Lakota Sioux from their ancestral lands. During the fur trades with the French trappers, in what is now modern day Canada, in the First Nations, because that's where the Ojibwe people originated, was in Canada. They had to expand their market for the beaver pelts that had become popular at that point for hats and coats and such. And so they pushed the Sioux, the Lakota and Dakota Sioux out of that area into what is now their ancestral homes, the Black Hills. Something I would like to talk about is also the lost languages that were lost both to time, disease, and warfare. As we all remember we remember the poem, or in 1492, when Columbus was sailing the oceans blue, it is estimated that there may have been over 500 individual languages spoken by indigenous people that he came in contact with. That's not including the ones that we were not aware existed at that time. This is just a rough estimate. And what became the US, there still are about 167 indigenous languages spoken fluently, and that number is dwindling. The last estimate I saw, by 2050, there will be less than 20 indigenous languages spoken in the world, not just here in the United States or in the North American continent, but in the world. A lot of it is just due to people not preserving those, time, people passing away, the elders that have that knowledge passing away and not sharing it due to some internalized shame that comes with some societal ideas that in some places do still exist, and just having that internalized shame about being indigenous. I will say the preservation of languages, there has been a huge movement in the last 15 years to capture indigenous languages, histories, and stories before fluent speakers pass away so that we can pass on those traditions to our future. There are informational websites and centers that hold records and recordings of these languages that you can also access on the internet. The revitalization of younger generations wanting to preserve their rituals, languages, and customs has led to these centers and recordings happening. We're also seeing an increase in people who are doing they're indigenous, but they're doing archaeology. And so they're treating these areas and these sites with care. I'm not saying that someone who's not connected to the culture could not treat these sites with care, but they may have a little bit more understanding about what a certain thing they have found means. They have the cultural identification to understand where that falls within a culture. And then these are just some of the resources that I used to make this class. I definitely learned a lot, even for someone who was connected to my culture through my grandfather and his mother. I still learn quite a bit. I don't claim to be the fount of all knowledge. But it is definitely something that I'm continuing to work on. And my goal is to continue to share my knowledge with people within the SCA, because if we can't share our knowledge, then it will be lost to time. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen now, and